No apologies. No nice explanations. They just said, "You should understand we're family." So I did what no one in my family expected. I emptied our joint savings account and left the country. If this sounds like a movie, welcome to Judgy Tales, a channel dedicated to bringing true, dramatic, and extremely judgmental stories from Reddit. Here we recount situations that will make you tilt your head, speak up in the comments, or even lose faith in humanity a little. Every week you'll hear new stories from White Heavy Checkmark A. Am I the a-hole? White Heavy Checkmark Confessions, Crazy Confessions. White Heavy Checkmark Toxic Relationships. White Heavy Checkmark, and lots of twists that will make you go, oh wow. So if you like stories, but the kind that make you angry and addicted to them, don't forget to subscribe and turn on the notification bell. Back to the story. I'm a pretty quiet person. Work in IT, live frugally, build my credit like a textbook. No parties, no borrowing, no drama. But my family is the opposite. Growing up, I was always this sacrifice. Giving up my share, my money, my opportunities to take care of others. I used to think, they probably don't mean it. They just need help. But then one day I got a letter from the bank. And from there my life changed forever. $200,000. That was the loan in my name. I didn't sign anything. I had no idea it existed. And the worst part? The people behind it are the people I call family. In today's video I'll tell you the whole story. How they did it. How I found out the truth. And the ending that left them all lost. And me free. Listen, judge, and don't forget to leave a comment. Do you think I'm wrong? Or am I just trying to get justice for myself? My name is Emily, I'm 29 years old and I live in a big city in the US, working in the tech industry. My life has always revolved around stability and careful planning. Since I started working, I've been very conscious about managing my personal finances responsibly. I'm not a big spender. On the contrary, I'm very disciplined when it comes to saving money. I keep a good credit score and save a portion of my income every month to build a solid financial foundation for my future. From the outside, my family seemed pretty normal. My parents were hardworking and had traditional views about family and responsibilities. I have an older sister and a younger brother. But if you only looked from the outside, you would never guess the conflicts, schemes, and manipulations that happened behind closed doors. Since I was a kid, I was taught that family comes first, that we should sacrifice and support each other. But the older I got, the more I realized that not everything in my family was fair or as perfect as it seemed. My family isn't wealthy, but they always tried to keep up appearances and never wanted anyone to know they were struggling financially. Because of that, there were many times when they asked for money or borrowed it under different pretexts. And I was always the one they turned to. At first, I thought it was normal to help. But after a while I started feeling drained. I remember one time my sister asked to borrow money to pay for college tuition. But shortly after, she bought a new car and went on an expensive vacation. My brother was always asking for money to start a business, but there was never any clear result. Every time I questioned them, they had reasonable excuses that made it hard for me to say no. My parents also had some costly spending habits I didn't agree with, but they refused to listen when I tried to bring it up. Every time I tried to say something, I'd just stay silent and keep my distance. I tried to keep my finances private and didn't share too much. I didn't want to get involved in unnecessary money troubles. I thought if I was smart and careful enough, I could avoid problems. But everything changed the day I received a letter from the bank. The letter informed me of a $200,000 loan taken out in my name. A loan I never signed for or even knew about. At first, I thought it was a mistake. But after contacting the bank, it became clear. My family had used my identity to take out this loan. I was shocked and furious. How could they do this? Why didn't they tell me? Did they think I would just stay quiet? Did they think I would let them get away with it? After confronting them several times, I realized they had no intention to apologize or pay back the loan. They treated it like it was normal, like it was my responsibility, just because we're family. I was faced with a tough choice. Accept the debt or fight back. I chose the latter, a choice none of them ever expected. I knew my parents had a savings account with joint ownership and I had access to it. I decided to withdraw all the money from that account to pay off the loan, and left a clear message for them. I packed my things and left the country, starting a new life where I could finally be free from the betrayal and toxic ties of my family. I never thought my life would be torn apart by the people I called family. I had always believed in family, in the idea that family was the safest place. the only place to lean on when life outside became too harsh. I was wrong. And the price of that naivety was $200,000, and a trust that would never be restored. It all started to fall apart one morning in February. It was freezing cold, but I felt colder than the snow outside. I received a letter from the bank, the kind of letter you never want to open. A default notice on a $200,000 loan. At the time I thought it must be a mistake. I had never taken out a loan that large. I still remember smiling, thinking to myself, the bank must have sent it to the wrong person. But the more I read, the more my smile faded. My name, my social security number, my address, they were all correct. The loan had been approved almost 6 months ago. The money had been disbursed and was 3 payments past due. I was shaking. My throat was dry. I grabbed the phone and called the bank, hoping they would tell me it was a system error. But the agent on the other end of the line just confirmed, "We checked. The loan is valid. The documents are complete. The signatures match." Signatures match. I felt like I had been punched in the chest. It couldn't be. I had never signed anything. When I asked for the account number, the agent read me a string of numbers I was all too familiar with. It was the joint savings account we opened with my parents when I first started working. The account I had barely touched in 5 years because I believed it was a family emergency fund. I was speechless. In that moment, everything in my head was spinning. The fragments of memories suddenly coming together into a terrifying truth. The seemingly innocent questions my mother had asked about my social security number. The times my sister asked to borrow a photocopy of her passport to register for online classes. The times my father told me to keep my name on all my accounts, just to be safe. I called Natalie. She didn't answer. I called my mother. Her voice was evasive. "I know about the loan. Tell me the truth," I texted. And then the phone rang again. Not an apology. Not a confession. Just, "Don't make a fuss. We're family." Family? They borrowed $200,000 in my name without asking me a question. They forged my signature, used my identity, and now they want me to be quiet? I thought I would cry. But I didn't. I didn't cry. I felt empty. I spent the next week tracing my finances, checking my credit score, going through every transaction. I discovered 3 new credit cards, all in my name. Total debt, over $25,000. Everything was falling apart. The life I had built with every penny I saved was now being crushed by my own family. I confronted them again. This time there was no denying it. Natalie straightened her shoulders. "I have a stable job, a good salary. I'll manage." My mother just sighed. "We're in trouble. How else could we do it?" I screamed. "How else could we do it? Maybe by not stealing your identity. Maybe by asking you before you become a debtor." But they didn't understand. They didn't see the mistake. In their eyes, I was just financial insurance, the one who always cleaned up the mess. I knew that if I did nothing, I would lose everything. My credit score, my job, my future, even my lifelong financial freedom. But I also knew, if I tried to stay, tried to forgive, I would lose myself. I didn't say another word. I didn't cry. I just kept quiet, and then silently prepared my final plan. I went into the bank on a drizzly afternoon. I withdrew all the money from our joint savings account, over $180,000. I transferred it directly to the loan account, wiping out almost all of the debt. I left 3 words in the transaction memo: "Give your freedom back." Then I disappeared. I packed my bags, quit my job, changed my phone number, cut off all social media. I moved to another state, rented a small apartment, and started over. No family, no memories, just me and a peace I had never known before. I have no regrets. I lost a family, yes, but I found myself. And if you're reading this, if you've ever been betrayed by people who were supposed to protect you, I want you to know, you're not crazy. You're not wrong. And you're not alone. Sometimes blood doesn't make family. Love doesn't give someone the right to hurt you. And forgiveness doesn't mean you have to suffer forever. I'm Emily, and I choose freedom. I was gone, but I didn't give up. During the first 3 months in the new city, I didn't just heal. I made a plan. A detailed plan down to the last detail. Not to destroy them, but to make them face up to what they had done, and never do it to anyone else again. I started by hiring a private attorney. She was a sharp-witted middle-aged woman who had worked on financial fraud cases. When I laid out everything, the paperwork, the statements, the proof of the forged signatures, She said nothing for a few minutes. Then she nodded slowly and said, "Emily, we're going to make it so they can't hold their heads up again. First, we gathered the evidence. I logged into my old bank account, downloaded every transaction. I printed out all the relevant text messages, emails, handwritten notes. I provided a recording of my last call with my mother, in which she indirectly admitted to wrongdoing but advised me to keep quiet. Then we filed a lawsuit, forgery, wire fraud, and misappropriation of property. But that was only the first step. Step 2 was going public. I created an anonymous blog posting my story. No name, no location, just an American girl betrayed by her own family. The story went viral. People shared, commented, recounted similar experiences. An organization that supports victims of domestic abuse contacted me and asked to publish the story. I agreed but kept my identity a secret. It was all coordinated by my attorney. By the time Natalie and my parents saw what was going around, it was too late. I got a text from Natalie, "You're destroying this family." I didn't respond. A week later, Natalie lost her job. Her company discovered she had been sued for fraud, and with their reputation at stake, they fired her immediately. As for my parents, the bank froze their joint accounts. The police came to the house to investigate. They weren't arrested yet, but their entire reputation, their image as a model family, was shattered. I didn't stop there. I hired a publicist to continue spreading the story on podcasts, YouTube, and Twitter. Each was a piece of the puzzle of the betrayal I'd endured. There were supporters, there were detractors. But the important thing was, the silence had been broken. I also began sending anonymous letters. No threats, just the truth, to people who had been close family friends. Neighbors, coworkers, even the pastor of my parents' church. Each letter was a piece of evidence, a slice of truth, a blow to the image they had built over the years. One evening in June, Natalie deliberately came to my law office. She stood in the rain, soaked, crying. I stood in the room looking through the glass door, not opening it. But I saw it all. The collapse, the despair, and the remorse that could never be compensated. She sat there for 2 hours before leaving. Did I know I had gone too far? Maybe. But I was no longer the weak girl I had been. I was Emily, the survivor. The one who stood up. A month later, the civil hearing took place. My family tried to negotiate, a partial payment and a request to keep the case private. I refused. I demanded the entire amount be returned, every penny. I looked them straight in the eye, unwavering, unyielding. All three of them avoided my gaze. In court I said, "This isn't about money. This is about justice. This is about the truth. And the right to live without being suffocated by betrayal." I won the case. Some time later I received a handwritten letter from my father. His handwriting was shaky and the ink was smudged. "I'm sorry. I didn't stop it sooner. But I have nothing left. I just ask for your forgiveness." I didn't reply. Forgiveness isn't free. It doesn't come just because someone admits their mistake. It's a choice, and I wasn't ready. Finally, I decided to share my story on YouTube. I used my real voice, but my face was hidden. My channel quickly gained tens of thousands of followers, and thousands of messages from people who had lived through the same pain as me. One person wrote, "Your story saved me from feeling guilty about cutting ties with my mother." Someone said, "You taught me that sometimes letting go is a way to love myself." And I know, I'm not alone. I'm Emily. And now I'm not just surviving, I'm living. Strong. And free. If you're listening and you're struggling too, remember, you're not alone. Winning the civil case was just one chapter in a long journey to find myself. When the courtroom lights went out, the verdict was handed down and everyone returned to their daily lives, I was still faced with something that no sentence could fix. The hurt inside. I moved to a new city by the sea. Every morning I woke up early, jogged along the beach and practiced deep breathing as a ritual of rejuvenation. But not every day was easy. Some nights I dreamed of my mother's eyes, cold, emotionless, as she signed the loan papers in my name. I woke up with a start, my heart pounding, tears soaking my pillow. Those memories are not easy to erase. I started therapy. The first therapist I saw, an older woman with a gentle voice, helped me realize the most important thing. I was not the one who was wrong. I was not a traitor to my family. I was the only one who dared to break out of a toxic cycle. So I started writing a diary. Each page was a pain, an unanswered question, a wish for the future. Gradually, those words became a book. I had no intention of publishing it, but an editor friend read the manuscript and convinced me to share it with the world. The book was called Broken Bonds. 3 months after its publication, it hit the bestseller lists. I received letters from all over the country. Women, men, even teenagers who had been betrayed by loved ones, thanking me for speaking out on their behalf. As for my family, the consequences for them were longer lasting than I had imagined. Natalie couldn't find a new job in finance. Her record was permanently marked. She had to settle for a part-time job as a waitress in a small-town diner where no one knew about her past. My father had health problems after the lawsuit, high blood pressure, insomnia, and then retired early in silence. My mother, who had been the breadwinner, was now confined to a cramped rental house in the suburbs, far from her friends, far from her old community. I wasn't happy to hear that, but I wasn't sad either. I just felt relieved. Not because they were suffering, but because I no longer had emotional responsibility for them. They had chosen that path. I was just the one who took the path to survive. There was one day I'll never forget. The day I received a long letter from Natalie. No apology. No explanation. Just that she dreamed of me smiling, standing in the sunlight. And that, while she couldn't change the past, she hoped I'd find true happiness. I didn't reply, but I kept the letter. Finally, I decided to close the blog, to stop telling the old story. Not because I wanted to forget, but because I had told enough. I had lived enough with the past. Now it was time to start the future. I started a small organization, providing counseling and support for people who had been financially abused by their loved ones. I didn't work there full-time, but I went there once a week to listen. Sometimes just having someone who understands and believes in you is enough to get you up. I also fell in love again. A man named Daniel. Gentle, patient, and never asked about my past until I was ready to share. He didn't try to fix me. He was just there, like a lighthouse. 3 years after the incident, I stood on the podium at a TEDx conference recounting my journey. No more shaking, no more tears. Just a clear and strong voice. Sometimes family isn't where you were born, it's where you are free to be. The audience stood up and applauded. And I knew I had truly walked through the darkness. The end is not a sunny day. It is the hundreds of dark days you still go through, the nights you cry but still get up to go to work the next morning, when you choose to forgive, not because the other person deserves it, but because you deserve peace. I am Emily. And here are my final words to you, the person listening to this story. You have the right to hurt. You have the right to be angry. But you also have the right to heal yourself and to rewrite the next chapter of your life. I did it. And I believe you can do it too. Thank you for listening to my story. What do you think? A devoted daughter, sacrificing her youth to save and protect her family, then being betrayed, taken advantage of, and forced to the brink of death by the people she loved most. They forged her name to borrow hundreds of thousands of dollars, throwing her into financial, mental, and moral crisis. But when she dared to stand up, dared to say no, they called her a saboteur. Think about it. If it were you, what would you do? Emily chose to retreat, not to destroy the family, not to denounce them to the end, not to put them in jail. She did not retaliate by being cruel. Instead, she let them suffer the consequences they created, silently but with great weight. So does that make her a bad person? Or are the truly blameworthy people who, in the name of family, are willing to suffocate a loved one for personal gain? Do you believe in forgiveness? Forgiveness is not a handshake of reconciliation. Forgiveness here is daring to let go of the burden that others have placed on you. It is saying, I don't need you to admit your mistakes. I just need to be free. And Emily's story is a declaration that you have the right to withdraw from a family relationship if it hurts you. Family, if not built on respect, is just an empty name. So who is wrong in this story? Pushpin. Pushpin, is it the mother, who should have protected, but turned her back and told Emily to be quiet for the common good? Pushpin, or is it the father, the man who used to be a support but chose to be complicit in silence? Perhaps they are all wrong. But more importantly, do they deserve to be cut off forever? Do you think Emily was too cruel? Or do you think she's too soft? We want to know, if you were in this story, what would you choose? Would you stand up and sue your parents and sister? Would you go public with the story on social media to expose them? Or would you stay silent, gnaw at the pain, and continue to sacrifice to preserve family honor? Be honest with yourself. And share your thoughts in the comments. Because at Judgy Tales, everyone is the judge of their own story. And finally, a bigger question. Belle, is there a limit to family? Is there a time when you would put an end to a blood relationship? If it hurt you beyond repair? If you've ever been through something similar, being taken advantage of by your family, forced to sacrifice, forced to keep quiet to save face, would you dare to walk away? Would you choose yourself over filial duty? Final verdict? We're not here to tell you right or wrong. But we do believe everyone has the right to live up to their values, even if it means loneliness. Emily lost a family, but she found herself. And sometimes that's the greatest victory of all. Fire, now it's your turn to speak up. Do you think Emily did the right thing? How would you have handled it if you were in the situation? Backhand index pointing right, leave a comment below. Speech balloon, we read them all and pick the best responses to read in the next video. Headphone, this is Judgy Tales, where every decision counts and every mistake counts. Subscribe to never miss out on the most shocking real-life stories. And remember, no one can make the right decision except you.